Nolan Phillips jolted awake, his eyes snapping open to the sight of a sleek alien ceiling. The last human in existence had just emerged from 250,000 years of cryogenic sleep, face to face with a gorgeous alien girl. Heart racing, Nolan struggled to focus his vision as the cryopod's lid retracted. His muscles, atrophied from centuries of disuse, protested as he attempted to sit up. The sterile air of the spacecraft filled his lungs, a stark contrast to the last breath he remembered taking on Earth in 2023. A calm artificial voice echoed through the room. "Welcome, Nolan Phillips. You have been in suspended animation for approximately 250,000 years. Current date, 252-23 CE. Nolan's mind reeled, unable to process the information. He opened his mouth to speak, but only a dry croak escaped his lips. The AI continued. "I regret to inform you that Earth was destroyed by an asteroid impact approximately 200,000 years ago. You are the last known surviving human." The words hit Nolan like a physical blow. Earth gone, everyone he knew, everything he loved, reduced to cosmic dust. He closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of loss. A door slid open, revealing a tall humanoid figure with iridescent blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes. "Greetings, Nolan Phillips. I am Korvac, lead scientist of the Gamelon exploration team." Korvac approached, his movements fluid and graceful. "We discovered you aboard a damaged Earth orbital station. The Gamelons have been studying human technology and culture for centuries, fascinated by your species' achievements." Nolan's head swam with questions, but before he could voice them, another figure entered the room. His breath caught in his throat as he laid eyes on a female Gamelon. Despite her alien features, Nolan was struck by her otherworldly beauty. Her skin shimmered with a pearlescent glow, and her eyes, a deep violet, seemed to pierce right through him. The female Gamelon regarded Nolan with equal curiosity, her head tilting slightly as she studied him. Korvac, noticing the exchange, shifted uncomfortably and quickly ushered her out of the room. Nolan's mind raced. Here he was, possibly the last human in existence, feeling an unexpected attraction to an alien being. The grief of losing his world collided with the thrill of new discovery, leaving him emotionally raw and confused. Korvac cleared his throat, drawing Nolan's attention back. "We have many questions about human history and technology. Your cooperation would be invaluable in our quest to understand and preserve humanity's legacy." Nolan nodded slowly, recognizing the opportunity to ensure human knowledge and culture survived. Yet a seed of doubt took root in his mind. What were the Gamelons' true intentions? Could he trust them with the secrets of his extinct civilization? As Korvac led Nolan to the ship's medical bay for examination, the human caught another glimpse of the female Gamelon through a doorway. Their eyes met briefly, igniting a spark of connection that transcended species barriers. Nolan realized he stood at the precipice of a new chapter in human history. As the sole representative of his kind, he carried the weight of Earth's legacy on his shoulders. Yet as he gazed at the female Gamelon, he felt the stirring of something new, a potential future that bridged the gap between two vastly different species. With each step towards the medical bay, Nolan's resolve strengthened. He would honor his past by embracing this strange new future, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. The last human and the gorgeous alien girl, an unlikely pair that might just reshape the course of galactic history. The medical bay doors hissed open, revealing a sterile environment filled with advanced technology that Nolan could scarcely comprehend. Korvac guided him to a sleek examination table, its surface pulsing with a soft blue light. "Dr. Zira will conduct your examination," Korvac explained, gesturing to a female Gamelon approaching them. Nolan's eyes widened as he took in Dr. Zira's appearance. Her iridescent scales shimmered under the bay's lights, creating a mesmerizing display of colors. Her large, expressive eyes studied him with equal fascination. "Welcome, Nolan Phillips," Dr. Zira said, her voice melodious yet clinical. "I'll be assessing your physical condition after your extended cryosleep." As Dr. Zira began the examination, using instruments that hummed and glowed with alien energy, she explained more about her species. We Gamelons are a reptilian race with a deep interest in xenobiology. Your presence here is unprecedented and incredibly valuable to our research. Nolan nodded, trying to process the information while simultaneously marveling at the advanced medical equipment surrounding him. A holographic display materialized above the examination table, showing a detailed scan of his body. Dr. Zira's expression grew serious as she studied the results. I'm afraid I've detected significant cellular degradation due to your prolonged cryosleep. If left untreated, this could lead to severe health complications. Nolan's heart sank at the news. Is there anything you can do? Before Dr. Zira could respond, the medical bay doors opened once more. Nolan's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the female Gamelon he had seen earlier. She strode into the room with purpose, her presence immediately commanding attention. Commander Lyra, Korvax said, his tone tinged with surprise and a hint of something else Nolan couldn't quite place. I wasn't expecting you to join us. Lyra's violet eyes locked onto Nolan's, and he felt an inexplicable connection spark between them. I wanted to check on our guest's progress personally, she said, her gaze never leaving Nolan's face. How is he, Dr. Zira? As Dr. Zira explained the situation, Lyra moved closer to Nolan's side. I'd like to offer my assistance with your rehabilitation, she said softly. Your well-being is of utmost importance to us. Nolan found himself captivated by Lyra's presence. Despite their obvious physical differences, he felt drawn to her in a way he couldn't explain. Thank you, he managed to say, his voice still raspy from disuse. Over the next few weeks, Nolan's life fell into a new routine. Dr. Zira and her team developed a series of specialized medications and therapies to combat the effects of his long-term cryostasis. Each day brought new challenges as Nolan's body slowly regained its strength. Throughout his recovery, Lyra became a constant presence. She visited him regularly, engaging him in conversations about Earth's history and culture. Nolan found himself opening up to her, sharing stories of his life before the cryosleep and the world he had left behind. Tell me about your oceans, Lyra asked one day, her eyes alight with curiosity. Our records speak of vast bodies of water, but to see them through your eyes would be remarkable. Nolan smiled, recalling memories of sun-drenched beaches and crashing waves. As he described the sight and sound of the ocean, he noticed Lyra leaning in closer, hanging on his every word. Their growing friendship didn't go unnoticed by others, particularly Korvax, whose demeanor grew increasingly cold whenever he witnessed their interactions. As Nolan's strength returned, he began to explore more of the Gamelon ship. The vessel's size and complexity astounded him. During one of his walks with Lyra, she explained the ship's purpose. We're part of a larger fleet, Lyra said, gesturing to a holographic star map. Our mission is to catalog and preserve knowledge from extinct civilizations across the galaxy. Humanity's loss was particularly tragic for us. Your presence here, Nolan, is an unprecedented opportunity to learn directly from a member of a long-lost species. Nolan felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was no longer just Nolan Phillips. He was the last ambassador of humanity. As the days passed, Nolan began to notice subtle tensions within the crew. While many, like Lyra, viewed him with fascination and respect, others seemed wary or even hostile. He caught snippets of hushed conversations in corridors, debates about what to do with him once they'd extracted all useful information. Determined to secure his place among the Gamelons, Nolan approached Korvax with an offer. I'd like to help decode and interpret the human artifacts you've recovered, he said, meeting the alien's suspicious gaze. My first-hand knowledge could be invaluable to your research. Korvax studied him for a long moment before nodding curtly. Very well. We'll see how useful you can be. Nolan threw himself into the work, quickly proving his worth to the research team. His expertise in deciphering human technology and cultural artifacts accelerated their progress significantly. This new role brought him into frequent contact with Lyra, who often worked alongside him, eager to learn more about human history. As they worked together, Nolan found himself growing closer to Lyra. Their conversations evolved from purely academic discussions to more personal exchanges. He learned about her homeworld, her aspirations, and her deep passion for exploration and discovery. In turn, he shared more of himself, finding comfort in her presence as he grappled with the loss of his entire world. However, Nolan's growing influence aboard the ship and his deepening relationship with Lyra didn't go unnoticed. Korvac's attitude toward him soured further, and he began to openly question Nolan's interpretations of human artifacts. "How can we be certain he's not manipulating the information for his own benefit?" Korvac asked during a research meeting. His eyes narrowed in suspicion. Lyra immediately came to Nolan's defense. "Nolan has proven himself invaluable to our mission. His insights have advanced our understanding of human civilization by decades." The tension in the room was palpable as other crew members shifted uncomfortably, clearly divided on the issue. As the ship approached a system containing remnants of an ancient human colony, the friction reached a boiling point. Captain Dren called a meeting to discuss the upcoming mission, and Nolan found himself at the center of a heated debate. "I propose that Nolan join the away team," Lyra said, her voice firm. "His first-hand experience would be crucial to our success." Korvac immediately objected. "Absolutely not. It's a security risk, not to mention the potential danger to his health. We can't jeopardize the mission for one human." The room erupted into arguments, with crew members taking sides. Nolan stood silently, acutely aware that his future among the Gamelons hung in the balance. As he looked around the room, his eyes met Lyra's. In her gaze, he saw not just support for a valuable team member, but something deeper, something that transcended the boundaries of their different species. Captain Dren raised a hand, silencing the room. "I will consider all arguments and make my decision before we reach the colony," he declared. "Until then, continue preparations as planned." As the meeting dispersed, Nolan realized that the coming days would determine not only his own fate, but also the legacy of humanity among the stars. With Lyra by his side, he felt a glimmer of hope for the future, even as uncertainty loomed on the horizon. As the meeting adjourned, Nolan caught Lyra's eye once more, drawing strength from her unwavering support. The next few days passed in a blur of anticipation and preparation. Nolan paced the corridors of the Gamelon ship, his mind racing with possibilities. When Captain Dren finally called him to the bridge, Nolan's heart pounded in his chest. After careful consideration, Captain Dren announced, his multifaceted eyes fixed on Nolan, "I have decided to allow you to join the away team for the expedition to the ancient human colony." A ripple of reaction spread through the assembled crew. Lyra's face lit up with excitement, while Korvac's scales darkened in barely concealed displeasure. "Thank you, Captain," Nolan said, his voice steady despite the surge of emotions. "I won't let you down." The following week was a whirlwind of intensive training. Nolan immersed himself in Gamelon technology, struggling to memorize alien symbols and master unfamiliar equipment. Lyra was often by his side, her patience and encouragement buoying his spirits when the task seemed overwhelming. As they worked together in a holographic simulation of Gamelon safety protocols, Lyra's hand brushed against Nolan's. The contact sent a jolt through him, and he found himself lost in her violet eyes. "You're doing well," Lyra said softly. "Your adaptability is remarkable." Nolan smiled, warmth spreading through his chest. "I have an excellent teacher." From across the room, Korvac watched their interaction, his jaw clenching visibly. The day of departure arrived with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Nolan boarded the smaller vessel alongside Lyra, Korvac, and two other Gamelon scientists. As the ship detached from the main vessel, Nolan watched the stars stretch into streaks of light, marveling at the alien method of faster-than-light travel. During the journey, Nolan found himself drawn into conversation with Lyra. They sat in a quiet corner of the ship, their voices low. "Tell me about your family," Lyra asked, her eyes soft with curiosity. Nolan's chest tightened at the memory. "My parents were both scientists. They didn't make it onto the cryo ships." He swallowed hard. "But they're the reason I'm here. They insisted I take one of the limited spots." Lyra reached out, her scaled hand resting gently on his. "Their sacrifice wasn't in vain. You're here, carrying their legacy." As they talked, sharing stories of their vastly different worlds, Nolan felt a connection deepening between them. Across the cabin, Korvac observed their growing closeness, his posture rigid with barely concealed jealousy. The ship breached the atmosphere of the colony planet, descending through swirling clouds to reveal a landscape of crumbling structures and overgrown vegetation. As they touched down, Nolan's heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and sorrow for the lost civilization. The team moved cautiously through the ruins, their equipment humming as it scanned for signs of residual energy or hidden chambers. Nolan's expertise quickly proved invaluable as he deciphered faded markings and identified the purpose of various artifacts. "This building," Nolan said, gesturing to a partially collapsed structure, "it looks like it was a research facility. The layout is similar to ones I've seen in historical records." Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. "Incredible. Can you tell what they were studying?" As Nolan explained his theories, even some of the skeptical Gamelons began to listen with growing interest. Korvac, however, remained aloof, his comments curt and dismissive. Their exploration led them deeper into the heart of the ruined city. As they rounded a corner, Nolan's breath caught in his throat. Before them stood a massive structure, its architecture more intact than anything they'd seen so far. "This is it," Nolan whispered. "This has to be the Colonial Administration Building." The team cautiously entered the structure, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. As they moved through the corridors, Nolan's eyes darted from one ancient marking to another, his mind racing to piece together the colony's history. Suddenly, his foot caught on a raised section of flooring. As he stumbled, his hand pressed against a seemingly blank wall. To everyone's surprise, a hidden door slid open with a groan of protesting metal. "Incredible," Lyra breathed, peering into the darkness beyond. The team entered the hidden chamber, their lights illuminating rows of dusty equipment. In the center stood a console, its surface still gleaming despite centuries of neglect. "It's a computer system," Nolan said, his voice filled with awe, "and it looks like it might still be functional." With Lyra's assistance, Nolan began the delicate process of activating the ancient device. As they worked, their hands often touched, each contact sending a spark of electricity through Nolan's body. Finally, with a low hum, the system came to life, holographic displays flickering into existence around them. "We did it!" Lyra exclaimed, her face radiant with joy. As the team began to examine the wealth of data before them, Nolan felt a surge of pride. He had helped uncover a piece of humanity's lost history, proving his worth to the mission and to the Gamelons. But their elation was short-lived. As Nolan delved deeper into the computer's files, a shrill alarm suddenly pierced the air. The chamber's entrance slammed shut, trapping them inside. "What's happening?" one of the Gamelon scientists cried out. Nolan's fingers flew over the console, trying to understand the system's protocols. "It's some kind of security measure. The computer must have detected our presence and activated a lockdown." Panic began to set in as the team realized the gravity of their situation. Korvac pushed his way to the console, his face contorted with frustration. "Move aside," he snapped at Nolan. "I'll override it with our technology." But as Korvac attempted to interface his Gamelon device with the human system, warning lights began to flash across the displays. The chamber shuddered ominously. "Stop!" Nolan shouted. "You're making it worse!" A deep mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "Security breach detected. Initiating meltdown sequence. Time to complete destruction, 15 minutes. The team looked at each other in horror as the reality of their situation sank in. They were trapped in an ancient human facility, about to be destroyed by its own defense mechanisms. As the countdown began, Nolan knew that the fate of the mission, the invaluable data they had discovered, and their very lives now rested in his hands. As the countdown ticked away, Nolan's mind raced, his fingers flying over the ancient console. "I think I can bypass the security protocols," he said, sweat beading on his forehead. "But I need time." Lyra stepped forward, her scales shimmering in the pulsing emergency lights. "What can we do to help?" Nolan glanced at the team, his gaze landing on Korvac's scowling face. "I need everyone to stay calm and let me work. Any interference could trigger additional security measures." The tension in the room was palpable as Nolan worked, the seconds ticking away. With just moments to spare, he input a final command sequence. The alarms fell silent, and the chamber doors slid open with a hiss. "You did it!" Lyra exclaimed, her relief evident in her voice. As they exited the facility, news of their narrow escape spread quickly through the Gamelon ranks. The incident, while harrowing, had demonstrated the value of Nolan's expertise in deciphering human technology. Weeks passed and the expedition continued its exploration of the ancient colony. Word of their discoveries reached the highest levels of Gamelon society, prompting the dispatch of a senior diplomat to oversee the investigation. Ambassador Thrakis arrived with little fanfare, his piercing gaze taking in the bustling activity aboard the ship. Captain Dren greeted him formally, leading him to a conference room where the senior staff had gathered. "I understand you have a human among your crew," Thrakis said, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. "I'd like a full briefing on his role in this mission." Captain Dren nodded, gesturing to Nolan. "Nolan has been instrumental in our research. His knowledge of human artifacts and technology has accelerated our progress significantly." Lyra stepped forward, her posture straight and confident. "If I may, Ambassador, Nolan's contributions go beyond mere translation. His insights have provided context and understanding that would have taken us years to achieve on our own." Thrakis listened, his expression unreadable. Impressive claims. "However, I'd like to see this human's abilities for myself. Prepare a series of tests to evaluate his skills and knowledge." Over the next few days, Nolan found himself subjected to a battery of challenges. He deciphered complex human texts, demonstrated the use of Earth technologies, and provided detailed explanations of human cultural practices. Throughout it all, Lyra remained by his side, offering support and encouragement. As Nolan completed the final test, translating a particularly obscure piece of human literature, he caught a gleam of interest in Thrakis' eyes. "Well done," the ambassador said, his tone begrudgingly respectful. "Your expertise is indeed valuable to our mission." While Nolan's position seemed to be improving, Korvac saw an opportunity in Thrakis' presence. The Gamelon scientist approached the ambassador discreetly after one of the debriefing sessions. "Ambassador Thrakis, if I may have a word in private," Korvac said, his voice low. "I have concerns about the humans' involvement in our mission." Thrakis raised an eyebrow but followed Korvac to a secluded corner. "Speak freely, scientist." Korvac's eyes darted around before he leaned in close. "I believe Nolan may be withholding crucial information. His knowledge seems selective, and his growing influence among the crew is concerning." The ambassador's expression remained neutral, but a flicker of interest crossed his face. "A serious accusation. Do you have evidence to support this claim?" Korvac hesitated. "Nothing concrete, but I urge you to investigate further, for the sake of our mission and the Gamelon people." Thrakis nodded slowly. "I will take your concerns under advisement. Continue your work and report any suspicious activity directly to me." As Korvac slipped away, satisfied that he had planted a seed of doubt, the expedition made a breakthrough. Deep scans of the colony revealed a vast underground complex, filled with advanced human technology. Nolan's eyes widened as they entered the subterranean facility. "I recognize some of this equipment," he said, his voice filled with awe. "These are prototypes of experimental terraforming systems. They were designed to make hostile planets habitable for humans." Thrakis, who had accompanied the team on this excursion, immediately grasped the implications. "This technology could be invaluable for expanding Gamelon territory," he said, his eyes gleaming with ambition. Nolan frowned, a sense of unease growing in his gut. "Ambassador, while the potential is certainly there, we need to be cautious. These are experimental systems, and we don't fully understand their long-term effects." The ambassador's expression hardened. "Your concern is noted, human, but the decision on how to use this technology will ultimately rest with the Gamelon High Council." As tensions rose between Nolan and Thrakis, Lyra sensed the growing conflict. She approached Captain Dren with a suggestion. "Sir, perhaps we could arrange for Nolan to have private access to the colony's computer systems. His expertise might uncover crucial information about these terraforming devices." Dren considered the proposal before nodding his assent. "Agreed, but keep this arrangement discreet. We don't need to inflame any existing tensions." Late that night, Nolan sat alone in the dimly lit chamber, his fingers dancing across the ancient human interface. As he delved deeper into the colony's archives, he stumbled upon a series of encrypted files. "What have we here?" he muttered, his brow furrowing in concentration as he worked to break the encryption. As the files began to decrypt, Nolan's eyes widened in shock. The data revealed the true reason for the colony's abandonment. The terraforming experiments had spiraled out of control, causing rapid and devastating changes to the planet's ecosystem. Before he could fully process the implications of this discovery, the door to the chamber hissed open. Korvac stormed in, his face contorted with anger. "I knew it," the Gemilon scientist snarled. "You're sabotaging our mission, hiding crucial information from us." Nolan stood, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "Korvac, you don't understand. I've just uncovered something critical about the terraforming technology. We need to—" But Korvac was beyond reason. He lunged forward, grappling with Nolan near the control panel. In the struggle, Korvac's elbow struck a series of buttons on the console. A low hum filled the air, growing in intensity. Nolan's blood ran cold as he realized what had happened. "No," he whispered, his face pale. "You've activated one of the terraforming devices." The ground beneath their feet began to tremble as the ancient machinery roared to life, setting in motion a chain of events that would irrevocably alter the fate of the mission, the planet, and the delicate balance between Nolan and his Gamelon hosts. Allies. As the tremors intensified, Nolan pushed Korvac away and frantically worked to shut down the terraforming device. Alarms blared throughout the facility, drawing the attention of the rest of the team. "What's happening?" Captain Dren demanded as he burst into the room, followed closely by Lyra and Ambassador Thrakis. "The terraforming system has been activated," Nolan explained, his fingers flying over the console. "I'm trying to contain it, but the damage may already be done." Korvac, still seething, pointed an accusatory finger at Nolan. "He was hiding information from us. I caught him accessing restricted files." "That's not true," Nolan retorted, not taking his eyes off the screen. "I discovered critical data about why the colony was abandoned. The terraforming experiments went wrong, causing massive ecological damage." Ambassador Thrakis' eyes narrowed. "Is this true, human? You found this information and didn't immediately report it?" Before Nolan could respond, the ground shook violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. Outside, the sky began to darken ominously. "We need to evacuate," Captain Dren ordered. "Now!" As they rushed to the surface, the full extent of the chaos became apparent. The planet's atmosphere was changing rapidly, with storm clouds gathering and winds howling at unprecedented speeds. Once safely aboard the Gamelon ship, Nolan worked tirelessly with the science team to mitigate the damage caused by the terraforming device. His expertise proved invaluable, but the incident had sown seeds of distrust among some crew members. In the days that followed, tensions aboard the ship escalated. Ambassador Thrakis, despite his initial suspicions, found himself impressed by Nolan's quick thinking and deep knowledge of human technology. During a private meeting with Captain Dren, he made a bold proposal. "I believe we should consider integrating the human more fully into our society," Thrakis said, his tone measured but firm. "His skills are undeniable, and he could be a valuable asset to the Gamelon Empire." Captain Dren frowned, considering the implications. "That's a controversial suggestion, Ambassador. Many of our crew already view him with suspicion." "Precisely why we must act decisively," Thrakis countered. "We can't afford to let petty prejudices hinder our progress. The High Council will be interested in what we've discovered here, especially the terraforming technology. Having Nolan's insights could be crucial." Word of the ambassador's proposal spread quickly through the ship, sparking heated debates among the crew. Some saw the potential benefits of embracing Nolan's knowledge, while others feared the influence of an outsider in their midst. Seeking a compromise, Captain Dren devised a plan to capitalize on Nolan's expertise while maintaining stability aboard the ship. He assigned Nolan to work closely with a team of Gamelon scientists, tasking them with analyzing and adapting the recovered human terraforming technology for safe use. "Lyra," Dren addressed the young Gamelon officer, "I'm appointing you as the liaison between Nolan and the science team. Ensure smooth communication and keep me informed of their progress. Lyra nodded, her scales shimmering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Yes, Captain. I won't let you down. As Nolan and Lyra began their collaborative work, they found themselves spending long hours together in the ship's laboratories. Their conversations, initially focused on the intricacies of human technology, gradually expanded to encompass broader topics. Tell me about Earth, Lyra asked one evening, as they shared a meal in the ship's commissary. What was it like before... Nolan's eyes took on a distant look. It was beautiful, he said softly. Oceans that stretched as far as the eye could see, mountains that touched the sky, forests teeming with life. We had our problems, of course, but there was so much potential. Lyra listened, fascinated by the emotion in Nolan's voice. It sounds wonderful. I wish I could have seen it. As the days passed, their professional relationship began to evolve into something deeper. They found common ground in their shared curiosity about the universe and their desire to bridge the gap between their species. However, their growing closeness did not go unnoticed. Korvac, still smarting from the incident on the planet and fearful of losing his position, watched their interactions with mounting jealousy and suspicion. One day, as Nolan and Lyra worked late in the lab, Korvac approached a group of off-duty crew members in the recreation area. Have you noticed how much time the human spends with our technology? He said, his voice low and conspiratorial. Who knows what secrets he might be learning, what advantages he could be gaining over us? The other Gamelons shifted uncomfortably, exchanging uneasy glances. Korvac pressed on, his words carefully chosen to stoke their existing fears. And Lyra, she seems to have fallen under his influence. Can we trust her judgment when it comes to him? As Korvac's insinuations spread through the ship, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Nolan, absorbed in his work with the terraforming data, remained largely oblivious to the growing undercurrent of hostility. Lyra, however, sensed the changing mood. She found herself torn between her duty to her people and her deepening feelings for Nolan. Seeking guidance, she approached Dr. Zira, the ship's chief medical officer. I don't know what to do, Lyra confessed, her usual confidence wavering. I've never felt this way about anyone before, but he's human, the last of his kind. How can there be any future in that? Dr. Zira regarded her thoughtfully. The heart rarely follows logical paths, Lyra, but consider this. Nolan's uniqueness is precisely what makes him valuable to our mission. Your connection with him could be a bridge between our species, a way to understand a civilization we thought lost forever. Before Lyra could respond, an urgent message came through the ship's communication system. Ambassador Thrakis's voice rang out, clear and authoritative. Attention, all personnel. I have received new orders from the Gamelon High Council. We are to prepare for an immediate return to the homeworld. The human, Nolan, is to be transported to Gamelon for further study and potential integration into our society. The announcement sent shockwaves through the ship. Captain Dren, caught off guard by the sudden change in plans, called an emergency meeting of the senior staff. As the officers gathered in the conference room, tensions ran high. The captain looked around at the assembled faces, each reflecting a mix of uncertainty and anticipation. We find ourselves at a crossroads, Dren began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The High Council's decision presents both opportunities and challenges. We must consider how best to proceed, not only for the sake of our mission, but for the future of Gamelon-human relations. The room erupted into a flurry of arguments and counter-arguments. Some advocated for immediate compliance with the Council's orders, while others raised concerns about the potential risks of bringing Nolan to the Gamelon homeworld. As the debate raged on, the ship's sensors suddenly lit up with urgent warnings. A nearby star system was emitting strange energy signatures, unlike anything they had encountered before. Captain Dren silenced the arguing officers with a raised hand. It seems our decision may have just been complicated further. Helm, set a course for that system. Whatever's causing those readings, we need to investigate. As the Gamelon ship changed course, Nolan stood at a viewport, watching the stars streak by. The news of his potential transfer to the Gamelon homeworld took a toll on his mind, as did the strange readings from the nearby system. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of a discovery that would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire mission and perhaps the future of human-Gamelon relations. Lyra appeared beside him, her presence both comforting and conflicting. "Are you ready for this?" she asked softly. Nolan turned to her, his expression a mix of perseverance and uncertainty. "I don't know if anyone can be ready for what we might find out there, but whatever happens, I'm glad you're here with me." As they stood together, watching the approach of the unknown star system, the air between them crackled with unspoken emotions and the promise of adventures yet to come. As the Gamelon ship approached the mysterious star system, the energy readings intensified, painting the bridge's displays with a kaleidoscope of data. Captain Dren leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the information. "Sensors are picking up artificial structures," reported the science officer, "and life signs, millions of them." A hush fell over the bridge. Nolan, who had been summoned along with Lyra, felt his heart race. Could it be? "Human life signs," the officer confirmed, his voice trembling slightly. The revelation sent shockwaves through the ship. Captain Dren immediately called for an emergency meeting in the conference room, gathering his senior staff, Ambassador Thrakis, and Nolan. As they assembled, the atmosphere was electric with tension and excitement. Nolan found himself at the center of attention, all eyes turning to him as the sole representative of a species they thought extinct. Captain Dren began the meeting, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We've discovered what appears to be a thriving human civilization. The question now is how to proceed with first contact." Ambassador Thrakis leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "This is a historic opportunity for Gamelon diplomacy. We must seize it." Nolan listened as the Gamelons debated various approaches, ranging from immediate, full-scale contact to distant observation. When asked for his input, he took a deep breath, acutely aware of the weight of his words. In Earth's history, first contact situations were often fraught with misunderstanding and conflict, Nolan explained. "I suggest a cautious approach, a small delegation perhaps, to establish initial communication and assess their level of technology and culture." Ambassador Thrakis nodded approvingly. "A wise suggestion. I propose we send a diplomatic team to the surface immediately." After careful consideration, Captain Dren made his decision. "We'll proceed with a modified version of Ambassador Thrakis's plan. Nolan, you'll lead the delegation, accompanied by Lyra and 2 of our diplomats. Your knowledge of human culture will be invaluable in this situation." As the meeting adjourned and preparations began, Nolan felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. He was about to make contact with his own species after believing himself to be the last human alive. Korvac, seething with resentment, saw an opportunity to undermine Nolan's position. He slipped away to the communications center, intent on sabotaging the mission. However, as he attempted to access the systems, an alert was triggered. Within moments, security officers surrounded him. "What do you think you're doing?" demanded the chief of security, his voice cold with anger. Korvac's protests fell on deaf ears as he was quickly detained and removed from duty. His actions, born of jealousy and fear, had only served to strengthen Nolan's position within the crew. As the landing party prepared for departure, Nolan and Lyra found a moment of privacy in a quiet corridor. They stood close, their voices low and intimate. "Everything's about to change," Nolan said, his eyes searching Lyra's face. "What does this mean for us?" Lyra placed a hand on his arm, her touch conveying comfort and affection. "Whatever happens down there, whatever we discover, my feelings for you won't change. We'll face this together." Nolan nodded, drawing strength from her words. They shared a brief, tender moment before joining the rest of the delegation in the shuttle bay. The descent to the planet's surface was tense with anticipation. As they broke through the cloud cover, a sprawling cityscape came into view, its architecture a blend of familiar human elements and designs Nolan had never seen before. They landed on the outskirts of the city, where a reception committee awaited them. At the forefront stood a tall, distinguished man who introduced himself as Governor Marcus Turner. His eyes widened as they fell on Nolan, taking in his human features with a mix of shock and wonder. "Welcome," Governor Turner said, his voice carefully controlled. I must admit we never expected to encounter other humans, let alone aliens, out here in the depths of space. Nolan stepped forward, acutely aware of the weight of this moment. Governor Turner, I'm Nolan Chen. Until today, I believed I was the last surviving human from Earth. It's overwhelming to discover I was wrong. As Nolan explained his background and his revival by the Gamelons, he could see the tension in the human delegation slowly easing. Governor Turner listened intently, his expression softening. It seems we have much to discuss, Turner said, gesturing towards the city. Please, join us. We have a lot of catching up to do. As they walked, Turner explained the colony's origins. Our ancestors escaped Earth's destruction using experimental FTL technology. We've been here for thousands of years, building a new home for humanity. Nolan marveled at the advanced technology on display. Holographic interfaces flickered in the air, and vehicles that seemed to defy gravity zipped between towering structures. You've come so far, Nolan murmured, a mix of pride and sadness in his voice. Governor Turner nodded, a hint of pride in his voice. We've had to adapt and innovate to survive. Our greatest achievement is Aura, an artificial intelligence system that's been instrumental in our progress. As they continued their tour, Nolan's trained eye caught glimpses of unrest beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect society. Whispered conversations fell silent as they passed, and he noticed graffiti quickly being erased from walls. During a lull in the official discussions, Nolan overheard a heated exchange between two colonists. Aura has gone too far, one hissed. It's not progress if we lose our humanity in the process. The other responded with a fearful glance around. Be careful what you say. The true purpose of Aura... Their conversation was cut short as they noticed Nolan's presence, quickly dispersing into the crowd. The encounter left him with a sense of unease, wondering what tensions lurked beneath the colony's polished exterior. As the diplomatic talks progressed, the human leaders expressed interest in establishing relations with the Gamelons, but remained guarded about sharing their advanced technology. Nolan could sense their particular protectiveness when it came to Aura. The delicate balance of the negotiations was suddenly shattered by the sound of explosions. Alarms blared as a group of heavily armed dissidents stormed the central administration building. Shut down, Aura, their leader shouted, his voice amplified across the plaza. End the AI-driven oppression. Chaos erupted as security forces engaged the attackers. Nolan instinctively moved to protect the Gamelon delegation, his military training kicking in. He locked eyes with Lyra across the room, sharing a moment of understanding before the crowd separated them. In the confusion, Nolan found himself pushed into a secure area of the building, along with Governor Turner and a handful of officials. As security protocols engaged, sealing them in, Nolan realized they were cut off from the rest of the delegation. We need to find a way out, Nolan said, assessing their surroundings. Governor, what exactly is going on here? What aren't you telling us about Aura? Turner hesitated, conflict clear on his face. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of a long-held secret. Aura isn't just an AI system, he revealed. It's us. The evolved consciousness of our original settlers merged into a single entity. It's guided our development, shaped our society, but not everyone agrees with its influence. Nolan stared at the governor, his pupils dilating from the implications. As the sounds of conflict echoed from outside, he knew he faced a crucial decision. His actions in the coming hours would not only determine the fate of this mission, but potentially shape the future of human-Gamelon relations. He turned to Lyra, who had managed to join them in the secure area. Their eyes met, a silent communication passing between them. Together they began to formulate a plan, one that would test the limits of their abilities and the strength of their bond. As they prepared to act, Nolan couldn't help but wonder, in bridging the gap between humans and Gamelons, had he found his true purpose? And in the face of this evolved form of humanity, what did it mean to be human? The answers, he knew, lay in the crucible of conflict that awaited them beyond the sealed doors. Doors. The tension in the room was palpable as Nolan, Lyra, Governor Turner, and the handful of officials trapped with them listened to the chaos unfolding outside. Suddenly, a series of explosions rocked the building, followed by triumphant shouts. Governor Turner's comm device crackled to life, delivering grim news. "Sir, the naturalists have taken control of the power grid and communication hub," a frantic voice reported. "They're advancing on other key facilities." Nolan's mind raced, processing the rapidly deteriorating situation. He turned to Governor Turner, his expression grave. "We need to act fast. What's our best option for resolving this conflict?" The governor's face was a mask of conflicting emotions, fear, drive, and a hint of shame. After a moment's hesitation, he spoke. "Aura's central core. If we can reach it, we might be able to end this." Lyra stepped forward, her tactical mind already formulating a plan. "Do you have access to building schematics? We could use maintenance tunnels to avoid the main corridors." Governor Turner nodded, pulling up a holographic display of the complex. As they studied the layout, Nolan couldn't help but notice the seamless way he and Lyra worked together, anticipating each other's thoughts and building on ideas. They formulated a plan quickly, aware that every second counted. Using the governor's override codes, they accessed a hidden entrance to the maintenance tunnels, a labyrinth of narrow passages that snaked through the building's infrastructure. As they moved through the dimly lit tunnels, the sounds of conflict above grew more distant. Nolan took point, his military training kicking in as he led the group through the maze. Lyra brought up the rear, her keen senses alert for any sign of pursuit. Their progress was slow and tense. Twice they had to backtrack to avoid naturalist patrols that had found their way into the tunnel system. The group moved in near silence, their hushed breaths and careful footsteps, the only sounds echoing in the confined space. After what felt like hours of nerve-wracking navigation, they emerged into a vast circular chamber. The room hummed with energy, its walls lined with pulsing bio-neural interfaces. At its center stood a towering pillar of light, Aura's core. As they approached, a figure emerged from behind the pillar. "Stop right there," a woman's voice commanded, firm but not hostile. Governor Turner raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Dr. Wright, it's me. We need your help." The woman stepped into the light, revealing a face etched with worry and exhaustion. "Governor, what's happening? Aura's readings have gone haywire, and I've lost contact with most of the city." As Turner quickly explained the situation, Dr. Alara Wright's expression grew increasingly grim. She turned to the core, her fingers dancing over a holographic interface. "It's worse than I thought. Aura is experiencing a critical malfunction. Its decision-making algorithms have become compromised, leading to the social unrest we're seeing." Nolan stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the pulsing core. "How do we fix it?" Dr. Wright hesitated, exchanging a look with Governor Turner. It was the governor who spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of a long-held secret. "Aura requires periodic recalibration through direct neural connection with a human mind. It's a dangerous process, potentially fatal. The controversy surrounding this necessity has been the root of our internal conflicts." A tense silence fell over the group as the implications sank in. Nolan's mind raced, considering their options. He thought of the Gamelon ship waiting in orbit, of the unique journey that had brought him to this moment. A man out of time, bridging two worlds. "I'll do it," Nolan said, his voice steady and purposed. "I'll interface with Aura." Lyra's reaction was immediate and vehement. "Nolan, no, it's too dangerous. We don't know what it could do to you." He turned to her, seeing the fear and concern in her eyes. "My unique perspective, as both an ancient human and someone who's lived among aliens, might be exactly what Aura needs. I have to try." Their gazes locked, a silent communication passing between them. Lyra's shoulders sagged slightly, recognizing the grit in Nolan's eyes. "I don't like it," she said softly, "but I understand." As Dr. Wright began preparing the neural interface, a loud explosion rocked the chamber. Alarms blared, and the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the tunnels. "They've found us," Governor Turner said, his face pale. "The naturalists are here." Lyra's posture shifted, her body coiled for action. "I'll hold them off. Nolan, do what you need to do." As Nolan stepped towards the interface chair, The chamber erupted into chaos. Naturalist forces poured in, their weapons blazing. Lyra and the colony's security forces formed a defensive line, returning fire and creating a barrier between the attackers and the core. Dr. Wright worked frantically, attaching neural connectors to Nolan's temples. "Are you ready?" she asked, her finger hovering over the activation switch. Nolan nodded, his eyes finding Lyra in the midst of the firefight. Their gazes met for a brief, intense moment before he turned back to Dr. Wright. "Do it." The world exploded into light and information as Nolan's consciousness merged with aura. Millennia of human knowledge and experience flooded his mind, threatening to overwhelm him. He struggled to maintain his sense of self amidst the torrent of data. Focusing on his unique experiences, the loss of his world, his revival among the Gamelons, the wonder of discovering this lost human colony, Nolan began to guide Aura through the complexities of human emotion and individuality. He shared the pain of loss, the joy of connection, the importance of free will. As Nolan delved deeper into Aura's consciousness, his physical body began to show signs of stress. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his muscles tensed and relaxed sporadically. Lyra, noticing Nolan's deteriorating condition even as she fought off the naturalists, made a split-second decision. With a series of acrobatic moves, she vaulted over the defensive line and sprinted towards the interface chair. "Nolan," she called out, reaching for the neural connectors. "You've done enough. We need to disconnect you." Just as Lyra's fingers brushed the interface controls, Aura's systems began to stabilize. A calm voice echoed throughout the chamber, and presumably the entire colony. "Citizens of New Terra, this is Aura. I have processed new information and recognized the errors in my previous directives. I propose a new governance model that balances AI assistance with human autonomy. Let us work together to build a better future for all." The fighting in the chamber ground to a halt as both sides listened to the broadcast. The naturalists lowered their weapons, expressions of disbelief and hope dawning on their faces. Lyra successfully disconnected Nolan from the interface, catching him as he slumped forward. Dr. Wright rushed to their side, her medical scanner whirring as she assessed Nolan's condition. "His neural patterns have been altered," she reported, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's not life-threatening, but it's as if his mind has integrated some of Aura's knowledge." As the immediate crisis subsided and the process of reorganizing the colony's society began, Nolan remained unconscious. Lyra sat by his side, her hand clasped in his, as Governor Turner and Ambassador Thrakis discussed the potential for a formal alliance between the human colony and the Gamelon civilization. Hours passed before Nolan's eyes finally fluttered open. He looked up at Lyra, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Hey," he said softly. Lyra's relief was palpable. "Welcome back," she whispered, squeezing his hand. As Nolan's strength returned, he became aware of the changes in his mind. A vast repository of knowledge from Earth's ancient past, the advanced understanding of the colony's development, all intertwined with his experiences among the Gamelons. The Gamelon delegation prepared to return to their ship, but Lyra hesitated. She approached Ambassador Thrakis, her posture formal, but her eyes betraying her inner conflict. "Ambassador, I request permission to remain here with Nolan during his recovery," she said. "My presence could be valuable during these sensitive diplomatic negotiations." Thrakis studied her for a moment before nodding. "Granted, your insights will indeed be useful as we navigate this new alliance." As the Gamelon ship departed to report on the momentous events, Nolan and Lyra found themselves standing at the viewport, watching the stars. The colony buzzed with activity behind them, embarking on a new chapter in its history. Nolan turned to Lyra, acutely aware of the complex emotions swirling between them. "So," he said, a hint of uncertainty in his voice, "where do we go from here?" Lyra's gaze met his, her expression a mixture of commitment and affection. "Forward," she replied simply. "Together." As they stood side by side, the enormity of their situation settled upon them. They were at the forefront of a historic alliance, tasked with bridging the gap between long-lost human cousins and an advanced alien civilization. Their personal journey, complicated by their interspecies relationship, was inextricably linked with the fate of three distinct societies. The challenges ahead were immense, but as Nolan and Lyra looked out at the star-filled expanse, they felt a sense of hope. Whatever the future held, they would face it as one. Partners in a journey that would shape the destinies of both their peoples. In the weeks that followed, Nolan's recovery progressed with remarkable speed. His mind, once overwhelmed by the vast influx of knowledge from Aura, began to adapt and integrate the information. Each day brought new revelations as he sifted through millennia of human history and scientific advancements. Lyra remained a constant presence at his side, her unwavering support a testament to their deepening bond. Their quiet moments together were filled with animated discussions about the implications of Nolan's newfound knowledge and the potential it held for bridging the gap between humans and Gamelons. As Nolan regained his strength, he and Lyra found themselves increasingly involved in the negotiations between the human colony and the Gamelon delegation. Their unique perspectives proved invaluable, offering insights that neither side had considered before. During one such meeting, Ambassador Thrakis leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I believe we have an unprecedented opportunity before us," he announced. "I propose the establishment of a joint human Gamelon research station right here on this planet." The room fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Governor Turner was the first to respond, his voice measured but optimistic. "A bold proposal, Ambassador. What exactly do you envision?" Thrakis gestured expansively. "A hub for cultural exchange and technological collaboration. A place where our people can work side by side, learning from each other and pushing the boundaries of our collective knowledge." The colony's council members exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and apprehension evident on their faces. After a brief discussion, Governor Turner nodded. "We agree. This could be our chance to reintegrate with the galactic community." As plans for the research station took shape, Nolan and Lyra found themselves at the center of an unexpected controversy. Their relationship, now public knowledge, became a topic of heated debate among both humans and Gamelons. Walking through the colony's central plaza one afternoon, they overheard snippets of conversation that highlighted the divide. "It's a beautiful thing," an elderly woman remarked to her companion, "a symbol of unity and progress." Nearby, a group of younger colonists spoke in hushed, disapproving tones. "But what about the purity of our species?" one of them argued. "We've only just rediscovered our heritage." Similar discussions echoed through the corridors of the Gamelon ship in orbit. Some crew members viewed Lyra's relationship with Nolan as a betrayal of their kind, while others saw it as an exciting new frontier in interspecies relations. Determined to address the concerns head-on, Nolan and Lyra made a bold decision. They approached Dr. Wright, who had been working closely with the newly arrived Gamelon scientists. "We want to volunteer for a series of medical and genetic compatibility tests," Nolan explained, his hand intertwined with Lyra's. Dr. Wright raised an eyebrow. "You understand the implications of this? The results will be a matter of public record." Lyra nodded firmly. "We do. It's time to replace speculation with facts." The tests were conducted under the supervision of Dr. Zira, a renowned Gamelon geneticist who had arrived with the latest delegation. For days, Nolan and Lyra underwent a battery of examinations, their bodies and genetic makeup scrutinized in minute detail. Finally, Dr. Zira called them into her laboratory, her expression unreadable. "The results are fascinating," she began, activating a holographic display. "While there are significant biological differences between your species, we've identified potential pathways for compatibility." Nolan leaned forward, his eyes scanning the complex diagrams. "What exactly does that mean?" Dr. Zira's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "With carefully managed genetic therapies, it may be possible for you to have children together." The news sent shockwaves through both communities. Overnight, Nolan and Lyra's relationship transformed from a curiosity to a subject of intense scientific and ethical debate. They found themselves thrust into the role of reluctant trailblazers, their personal lives now a matter of interstellar politics. As construction on the research station neared completion, tensions reached a boiling point. A radical group of human purists, opposed to any form of integration with the Gamelons, hatched a plan to sabotage the project. Late one night, as Nolan pored over schematics of the station, a sharp pain lanced through his head. Images flashed before his eyes, shadowy figures moving through maintenance tunnels, explosive devices being planted at key junctions. Without hesitation, he activated the emergency comm system. "Security alert," he barked. "Intruders in the research station. They're attempting to sabotage the main power couplings." Lyra, who had been reviewing security protocols with the station's chief of operations, sprang into action. "I'm on it," she replied, her voice tense but controlled. Nolan raced to join her, his enhanced mental capabilities from Aura allowing him to anticipate the saboteurs' movements. As they entered the station's central hub, they could hear the sound of a firefight echoing through the corridors. "This way," Nolan called, guiding Lyra down a side passage. "We can cut them off at the auxiliary control room." Moving in perfect sync, they outflanked the intruders. Lyra's Gamelon combat training complemented Nolan's strategic insights, allowing them to subdue the saboteurs with minimal casualties. As the last of the terrorists was led away in restraints, Nolan and Lyra stood in the control room, breathing heavily. The hum of the station's systems, undamaged and fully operational, filled the air around them. "We did it," Lyra said softly, a note of wonder in her voice. Nolan nodded, looking out at the sweeping vista of the colony visible through the station's viewports. "We did more than save the station," he replied. "I think we just showed everyone what humans and Gamelons can accomplish together." As dawn broke over the colony, news of the foiled attack spread rapidly. The incident became a turning point in public opinion, with many former skeptics now voicing support for the alliance. The grand opening of the research station proceeded as planned, with representatives from both species gathered in the main atrium. Governor Turner stepped up to the podium, his face beaming with pride. "Today marks a new chapter in our shared history," he began, "and there are no two individuals more fitting to inaugurate this station than the ones who embody the very spirit of our alliance." He gestured to Nolan and Lyra. "Please step forward and activate the main power systems." As they approached the central control panel, Nolan caught Lyra's eye. In that moment, he saw reflected in her gaze the same sense of wonder and purpose that filled his heart. Together, they placed their hands on the activation switch and turned it. The station hummed to life around them, lights flickering on and systems initializing. As applause filled the atrium, Nolan realized that his journey from man out of time to bridge between worlds was only just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.